In this mini lecture, we're going to switch to the upper extremity and take a look at one of the tools in ErgoWeb called Ue-Rula, or the Rapid Upper Limb Assessment Tool. For the upper extremities, abbreviated UE, this will include the hand, the arm, the shoulder, and neck, so upper extremities. This is significant because according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, there's about 300,000 cases of upper extremity MSDs occurring annually. And so whenever you hear about repetitive jobs, if it's not a manual material handling job, it's typically repetitive due to stress on the upper extremities. The risk factors for upper extremity MSD are those factors that increase the probability a worker will develop a disorder. And there are mechanical stresses, which this will focus on. There are also psychosocial stresses that we're not going to focus on. So we're going to focus on the physical stresses. The physical risk factors, those things that if workers are exposed to, they'll increase the probability of a worker developing a disorder. Those typically boil down to these 6, although sometimes you'll see some variations. But the more common 6 that OSHA identified is the force or muscular effort, the repetition or repetitive motion rate, awkward postures, vibration, contact stress, which is a mechanical stress. It is if your soft tissue comes into direct contact with a mechanical stressor, a sharp edge, a hard edge, and then lastly cold temperatures. And so your upper extremity tools typically will assess these physical risk factors or a sample of these risk factors. In ErgoWeb, there are 4 upper extremity assessment tools. We are going to be looking at the top 3, so the top 3 listed here. The 4th one is available if you would like to use it. It's very similar to the psychophysical manual material handling tools, except for you don't have a choice on industrial population. It is specifically set for 75% female. You don't have a choice on male, female, or other percentages. But the first tool we're going to look at is Ue-Rula. Ue-Rula evaluates upper extremity risk from exposure to postures, and this tool for the most part does evolve around posture. But it does also consider force and then muscle use and motion. To apply Ue-Rula, you want to observe the task, several cycles of the task, so that you can determine which particular one has the highest risk, so highest upper extremity risk. That highest risk is what you want to assess within Ue-Rula. You're looking for possibly the position held for the longest duration. Okay, so if you're holding it for a long duration, your muscles are becoming fatigued, and so that could put an employee at high risk. It also could be, if it's not held for a long duration, it could be the position with the highest force, so the highest muscular effort. That could be the most risky. Or the most risky could be the position that has the highest deviation, and so the position where you have the worst awkward posture out of the whole task. And so it could be any of those possibilities. But you want to observe all the postures within the task to find which of those do you want to pick. And then sometimes you would have to do several different assessments to find that out. Okay, so it might not be immediately obvious. Within Ue-Rula, you want to assess one side of the body at a time. And so it's not the entire body, it's one side, and often you only need to assess the worst side. Okay, so the worst will give you an indicator of how stressful the job is. Don't mix and match left and right hand sides. Once you pick a side, you're looking at the wrist, the elbow, the shoulder, so on, posture of that one side. If you have a very deviated left wrist, but a almost straight elbow, a very deviated right side, a very deviated right shoulder, then you would need to determine, I'm only going to look at the right side and maybe that wrist is neutral. You don't add in the left side value of that. Okay, so one side of the body at a time. If you need to assess both, you're not sure, go ahead and assess both, but you do them separately. And then similarly, if there are several high-risk tasks, before we said we'll kind of pick the worst, you might need to evaluate each task. And so you might be running a series of Ue-Rula assessments. Ue-Rula major breakdown, they look at group A part of the body, that's your upper extremity excluding your neck, and so they're looking at your arms and hands. And then group B moves from neck, back, and leg. Okay, so it's really mostly focused on group A. Group A is the more important, more of the focus. But within each of those groupings, A or B, it's going to break it down and look at one body segment at a time. It starts with the body segment that is the upper arm, moves to the lower arm, and then wrist, and then neck, trunk, legs. Starting out, it does give you this version of ErgoWeb. They've updated it in the last year, but they do give you a reference diagram so that you can match. You take a look at your worker, your videotape, your picture, whatever, you match that to the reference diagram. You're looking at, if we're looking at our shoulder posture, so our upper arm posture is at the shoulder, you're looking at, are they almost neutral? So within 20 degrees of flexion, so flexion's in front of your body, to 20 degrees of extension. Extension is behind your body. And so 1, and they start adding point values. 1, the lowest stress is nearly neutral. For 2, you can either be further behind your back or you can be further forward in flexion. So a little bit of flexion. Adding more points, more stressful, you got even a lot more flexion to a whole lot of 90 degrees. So 90 degrees or more above your head. Okay, so you're simply looking at the shoulder posture for the first case, and then there are also some things that you might be doing with your shoulder, with your upper extremity. One thing, it could be abducted, and so in addition to either forward or backward in front of your body, you could be holding your arm out to the side, away from the body. So is it abducted? This will be a simple radial selection, either yes they're doing it, or so you pick it, or no, you don't pick it if they're not doing it. So your arm is side away from the body. Arm is held away from the body. You're looking at condition 2 is the shoulder raised. So shoulder raised. Those will both add points. Those are both more stressful, so those will be adding points. The third condition is the operator is leaning or the weight of the arm is supported. That's going to help your body. It's going to create less stress on you, so that'll be a minus. It'll take away points if you're having help support the weight of your arm. Okay, so upper arm. The next thing, they'll move down to the lower arm. We know that neutral for our elbow is 90 degrees, and so your first selection will be, is it nearly neutral? So a little bit above, a little bit below. If it's not that, it's more extreme, and so it's a whole lot above or a whole lot below. And then the other condition you might need to check, are your arms working out to the sides of your body, or is it working across your body? Okay, so you've got that degree angle in front of your body, and then you have the potential to work out to the side or across your body. For wrists, least stressful is this neutral 0 degree posture. We have 0.2 value is a little bit above, a little bit below. The bending backward is called extension, so wrist extension. The bending forward is flexion. So a little bit of extension of flexion, or a whole lot of flexion or extension. Okay, so that's kind of a forward backwards. You can also have bent away from midline, that your wrist is bent. If it's a pinky side, it's ulnar deviation. So pinky side, the PU, that little kids say, pinky ulnar. The thumb side, if it's bent towards this way, it's called radial deviation. And then lastly, potential beyond the flexion extension, the radial ulnar deviation. You could also be twisting your wrist, and so this is through your forearm, twisting your wrist. In this case, you're looking for pronation or supination. So neutral is handshake posture. If you are rotating your arm so that your palms are down, that's pronation. Palms up towards the sky. That is supination. Okay, so once you get Group A selected, they'll move into posture of Group B. Group B starts with your neck, again, nearly neutral to more and more flexion. And then worst case will be extension, bending your neck backwards. That is stressful to your body. You don't want to do that, so that'll be your most point value. You can have twisting your neck, so for twisting it from side to side, or you could have bending it to the side, to either side. Similarly, trunk, only have flexion, and again, higher point values, more stress is the more it's deviated. Trunk could be twisting, trunk could be bending to the side. After each Group A, you have a choice, or you also have to identify the motion and force for Group A, and then similarly after you finish the posture Group B, you also identify the motion and force of Group B. And so whenever they talk about motion and force, they're looking for muscle use and motion. So choices are, we're looking for, is the work static? Is it dynamic, meaning highly repetitive? If it's not either of those, then it's intermittent. Intermittent is more occasional. It's neither static nor repetitive. Static, you've got a muscle contraction that's held for longer than a minute, so pretty long term. Keeping your muscle contracted for longer than a minute is very stressful to your body. Repetitive motion is greater than 4 per minute, and so it's a fairly low repetition rate, but this is the definition this particular tool uses. Force will be the muscular effort, and so is it a low, and this is external effort, is it a moderate or high? So low, less than 4.4 pounds, high, greater than 22. And then overall gross body posture, looking at sitting and or standing, and then are you balanced, unbalanced? Do you have leg support? The outputs from this, it'll give you an action level and a grand score. Action level will tell you, do you have to do anything, so it doesn't need changed, and then how soon do you have to change it, the immediacy. Okay, and of course the immediacy, we have to do it now, we can afford to wait, depends on how stressful it is. Ue-Rula will also give you a grand score, and there are more grand scores than there are action levels, but grand scores help you prioritize. If you've got something that's a level of 5, that would have a higher priority than something that's a level of 1. Okay, so grand scores are used to help you prioritize tasks for change. Working through an example, we have a GA in our old lab, and so this was taken quite a few years ago, but you can see he's working at one of our computers, and he's also on the phone, and so it's like, well, I know this was pretty stressful posture, let's analyze how stressful it could be, how high the risk is. And so you notice that we're going to use Ue-Rula. We're looking at his upper extremity posture, and so Group A will be here. So Group A will be his arms. You can see that his shoulders, his upper arm is not neutral. He's reaching forward, so flexing. His elbow neutral is about 90 degrees. We can see that his arms are nearly straight here, so straightened out. And then we can see that his wrist is bent backwards in extension, and that he's resting his arms on the table. For his Group B, we're looking at neck. We can see the neck is under stressful posture here. He's bending it to hold the phone handset. His back, we can see that, well, he's supported down here, but his upper part's coming off the seat, and so is he twisting, is he leaning, kind of what's he doing there? And then we're going to have to assume, we don't have the picture, the visual, so we're going to have to assume that he's sitting, well supported, able to put both feet on the ground. Okay, so we're going to use ErgoWeb to analyze this. I'm going to go back to ErgoWeb and select the Ue-Rula tool. You've probably already noticed that you can either select from the tool selection guide. You can always go back to this menu, or if you know if it's an upper extremity tool, if it's a manual material handling tool, you can pick from this area too. Okay, they'll both get you to the same place. So in analyzing that picture, the first thing we want to look at is the upper arm analysis. So his shoulder, we said he was reaching forward. So is he nearly neutral? Is he reaching forward 20 to 45 degrees? And note that the picture I showed you is slightly different from this. They combined, I think they have an error looking here. I'll give you the same point value, but they don't show you the flexion. They've just told you in the text down below it. Okay, so they're actually combining that picture. They're combining this and this in the text, although the picture doesn't do a good job of that. So be careful with that. So is he nearly neutral? Is he bending forward, flexing a little bit? Is he flexing a whole lot? We know it's not above his head. So kind of where is he? I'm not necessarily great at eyeballing that, and so I will often use a protractor or goniometer on a picture, on a person, on whatever I can, since I don't feel necessarily comfortable eyeballing things myself. But I eyeballed that, and I found that I didn't eyeball that. I measured it and found it was 43 degrees of flexion, and so we're actually right here. Okay, picking back up. We picked 43 degrees of flexion, and sorry, I had everything selected and analyzed already. And so if we start from scratch, we want to look at, are any of the following true? Is the upper arm abducted? And in looking at the right hand side of the body, the part that is directly visible here, we can see that he is holding that arm out to the side somewhat, so we would say that it is abducted. He is holding it out to the side, so I'm going to check that. We want to know, is that right shoulder raised? And we see it is raised, that he's raising it to hold the phone set. And we also pointed out that the operator is leaning on the table, so the weight of his arm is supported. He's not holding it out on space, so we're going to go ahead and select that condition. So the upper arm done. Moving into the lower arm analysis, we are looking for, is your elbow nearly 90 degrees? And we see that no, his arm is almost straight. It's about a 30-degree flexion, so it's down in this area right here. So we're going to pick that. We're looking select the condition 1. Is that true? Is the lower arm working across the midline of the body or out to the side? And it's like, no, they're pretty much in front of him, and so we don't select that. And then finally, the wrist, we know it's not neutral. It was extended. Is extended a little bit or a whole lot? In this case, it was extended a whole lot, and measurement shows about 40 degrees. Condition 1 is either radial or ulnar deviation. We can't see that. It's very hard to see, or you can't see it on the picture. We don't have the right angle. We would have to have an overhead shot for that. But knowing that most people have to deviate, have to use ulnar deviation to use a keyboard, particularly if you're broad shouldered such as he is, I know that almost has to be true, and so I'm going to go ahead and select the ulnar deviation. And then lastly, is he near the end of range of twist? Is he near the end of pronation or supination? You're going to find that if you put your arms out, if you're keyboarding, your palms are down, you try to twist much more, you can't get much further than that. So yes, he's near the end. Although it doesn't look like it's an awkward posture, it is not the neutral handshake posture. It is near the end of pronation. Okay, so we've got the upper extremity posture, group A postures. We want to check, is it muscle use and repetitive motion? Is the upper arm, lower arm, and wrist, is it mainly static, held for longer than a minute, or is it repetitive? And we have caught him in this posture. He talked on the phone a lot, and so yes, he had to hold that posture for more than a minute. It was mainly static. The force or load, he was holding the phone headset, and that's a fairly light load. It's not more than 4 pounds, and so we're going to pick the no load. Moving on to group B, his head and neck. It was not flexed very much forward, so I'm going to go with the neutral within 0 to 10 degrees. However, the conditions, was it twisted? No, it wasn't twisted, but it was definitely side bending. So side bending to hold the headset. The trunk, so the back and trunk, is he sitting and well supported with a, okay, you don't have much flexibility. It's either sitting or standing. If it is sitting, they say well supported, and yeah, he is. But his upper back was coming off. Was his upper back coming off because it was twisting or because he was side bending? I think he was twisting a little bit to get his shoulder raised, to get to the keyboard, to hold the phone headset. So I'm going to pick twisting. Trunk is twisting. Leg analysis, well supported, evenly balanced, so we're good there. Muscle use, static, mainly static. Yeah, it was neck static to hold the phone. But again, it was low resistance. Okay, so once you get that, hit calculate. You've got it, and give you all the inputs again. It'll give you a scoring system. Scoring system, force was low. Yes, we had some muscle use. Yes, we had some bad postures, particularly in group A, and so we have some high scoring. Grand score of 5. Grand score 5. Action level 3 gives you a red dot indicating that, ooh, further investigation, changes are required soon. Working postures outside safe ranges. So going back, your possibilities for action level 1, 2, 3, 4. We were at a 3. Our grand score was a level of 5, and so what that means, again, ICR, investigations and change required. Our immediacy is we need to do it soon. We need to do it soon. There are stressful postures here. And so obviously you could go back and work on improving posture, improving the static hold, and in the muscle use. So the static posture. Okay, and that concludes our use of Ue-Rula.